Hello and welcome to PodCoder. In the previous video, we have successfully implemented the error handling part, and in this video, we are going to finish up with this login screen and start developing the rest of our application. So for the login route, here we have this sign in method and we are calling this endpoint. So first of all, let me check the response, even though we have checked a lot. So for that, I am going to open the postman and I am going to call that the login route. If you remember from the previous videos in this series, we have used this login method a lot, but unfortunately right now we don't have it because I cleared this history. And to store these login routes for an application like this one, and we call it as forset, you might be having many applications or working simultaneously on many applications. So it is really a good practice to start a collection. So I have already these 3 collections. So we can create another one. Let me call that as a forset. And you can have this description, but right now we don't want it or we don't need it. And we have this login route. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call on this save method. And I'm going to use this collection, forset collection, and I'm going to save it. So right now I have one endpoint in this one. So if I click on this, you can see we have it right now, and we can just customize it. And the good thing about these collections are, so if you see here, I have this collection, and right now there are many endpoints that I can use it, and anytime I want to just call an endpoint, I'm just coming here and clicking, and the rest of thing is stored there. So basically you're storing all the endpoints here, and if you want to call any endpoint, so you can just click on it and you have it. So right now we have this login, and for the login, let me open the back end. Here we need the email and password, so we can have it here in the body part, but before that we need to have the content type in our headers as application JSON, if you remember from the previous videos. So what we need is an object, and for that we have the email and also we have the password. So the good thing about this header, the headers, the content type is there. If I just remove this one, and right now you can see it is a text, something like the text, and with no formatting and stuff. So if I just tick this one and go back to the body part, you can see it is nicely formatted. And also if we are having an error, you can see here we have this cross icon, means we are missing something. So for the password, all our passwords are password only. And for the email, I am going to grab a user. I'm good with this one. So I am going to paste it here. And right now, if I send this request, and yeah, the method is get, we need a post method for this one. So we have this nicely formatted response, and this is because I use this pretty, and if I use it as raw, you can see it like this. For the preview we have this one, and for the visualize, right now we don't have anything to visualize. So we have access token, we have token type, and also we have this expires at, and which are all strings. And we have these things after calling this login route. So if I go back here in the mobile application, you can see right now we have this response object. So what we can do is we can have our string, first of all, the access token. So we have this response object, and from this response object we have data in it, because what you see right now here, this object, we have it here as the response.data. And from that response.data, what we want is we want to grab the access token. So basically this key is the key that we have it here. So if I just copy and paste it here, we are good to go. And right now for the expires at, also for the expires at, we can have this expires at, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this key and paste it here. So right now, if I just print this to print access token and also print this expires at, and let me go here and I am going to just copy this user. So I am going to paste the email here and I am going to type the password. And right now, if I send a request, you can see we have this token which is printed here, and also we have this expires at. So we have this too, and right now what we need is we need to store it somehow in our application. So later on, when the user is going to open the application and after successful login, we don't need to show the user this login page every time. So on the successful login, we want to store this token, and also we want to navigate the user to the home page. So how we can do that? If you remember from our beginning part, we have this shared preferences, and also we have this Flutter secure storage. So we'll use this Flutter secure storage later on, and right now we need to have this shared preferences and we can use it. And also, if I just open my browser and here I type the Flutter shared preferences. So let me open this one, and here what we can have is we can have an instance of this shared preferences by getting this shared preferences dot get instance, and make sure that this is a future. So basically this get instance is a future, so we need to await for that. And what we need is we can just have it like this one, pref.getEnd or pref.setEnd, and many methods. So what we need is we need to have the shared preferences. But later on in this application, we will use this shared preferences many times, and every time if we create this instance, it's not a good way and a good practice. So what we can do is we can create a singleton of these shared preferences, and also we can have it in our entire application. So how we can do that? So let me minimize all this one. Inside this application layer, I am going to create a directory. I'll call it as storage, and inside this storage I am going to create a file. I'll call it as local storage. So this naming doesn't matter. So we have this local storage. Basically this local storage is a class, local storage, a custom class. And right now what we need is, first of all, we need to have these shared preferences. Right now, first of all, I'm going to call it a static shared preferences. So I'm going to call it as shared preferences. And to create a singleton instance of these shared preferences or this local storage and accesses in the entire application, what we need is, first of all, we need to have this static local storage. So basically this local storage type is the type of this class. So I am going to paste it like this one. And what we need is we need to call it, and I am going to call it as singleton. So basically this is a singleton instance of this shared preferences, this local storage. And for that we need to create an instance of that. So I am going to call this local storage dot internal. So it doesn't matter this internal or whatever it is. So basically this internal is a factory. And so if you are familiar with Dart, we can have factories. So right now this factory is not presented. What I'm going to do is I am going to call this local storage, then this internal. So let me copy it. And inside this internal, first of all, what you need to do is, so whenever we are calling this local storage, so basically we are calling this internal for the new instance or this singleton. So here inside this internal, here you can do init your variables if you have. So in our case we have this shared preferences right now, so we need to call this one. So First of all, what we need is, let me call a method or create a method. I'm going to call it as initialize shared preferences. So this method doesn't exist, so I am going to call, or let me create this method. And this method, what I'm going to do is, first of all, we want to have this shared preferences and we need to instantiate it. And if you remember from here, from the documentation, we have this shared preferences dot get instance as a future, and we need to await for that. So now this method should be a future. So let me call it as future type void, and here we'll have this method as a sync method, and we need to await for the shared preferences dot get instance. So basically, if I hover on this one, you can see this is a future. So once this shared preference is initialized, we can have the related methods for storing and also retrieving the data. As we want to store only the strings for now, what we can have is we can have a static which is a future of type boolean. I'm going to call it as set item. To set an item which is a type string, we need a string key, and also we need a string value. So we have these two parameters, and right now we can call that shared preferences dot set string, and we have the key and value. But if I hover on this set string, you can see it is a future of type boolean. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to return this one, and right now we have this also as a future type boolean if you want to just check whether an item is successfully set on the shared preferences or not. With the set item method, we are storing on the shared preferences a value of type string. So right now what we can do is we can get that value. So I am going to call it as a static, which is a return type is a string. So I'm going to call it as get item. And for this one, what we need is we need to have a string key, and we can have this return shared preferences dot get string and with the key. So basically what we have is we have a singleton class, and this is called as local storage. So from now on, from our entire application, we can call this local storage and this set item to set an item to on the local storage or get it. But for that, we need to pass these parameters. But before anything else, what we need is we need to initialize this shared preferences, because if this shared preference is not initialized and we call on these shared preferences, this is right now null. So this is not set it or initialized, and if we call this set item, we will have or will crash our application, because we are calling this set item on this null preferences here, set a string on this null, so it will return an error. So where is the best place to initialize these shared preferences? The good place is inside the main of our application, because here what we want is we have this initial route, and for this initial route what we want is we want to check if the application is already successfully signed in. We want to return, or we want to navigate the user to the home page or the home screen. Otherwise, we want to navigate it to the sign in. So the first place what we need is inside this material app. But before this one, what we need is we need to initialize it. So where we can initialize it here inside the main. So right now, if I'll call that local storage class and dot initialized preferences, so we are good to go. But there is a very big problem here. So let me save it and let me refresh this application. So once I refresh this application, boom, we just crashed our application and we have this error. Basically, what we want is this service binding dot default binary message. So this is called before binding was initialized. So what we did is here we call this initialized preferences before running the app. So basically this means that our main is not initialized yet, and we are going to call this a service binding. And here it clearly mentions if you are running an application and need to access the binary messenger before run up has been called, for example, something like that, what we need to do is we need to have this in widgets Flutter binding dot in short initialize. Let me copy this one, and I'm going to do the main, and before everything else we want to just have this widgets Flutter binding dot initialize app. So basically it will ensures things or the variables that what you want to initialize before running the app. Here it will ensures that everything is initialized and you have it right now. But here is still a small problem. This problem is that this future initialize shared preference is a future, and we need to have this main method as async, and we need to wait for that here. So we have it right now, and right now if I just click on this one and to escape and refresh my app, we are good to go. And now what we can do is inside our auth repository we have this access token, and also we have this expires at. We can have that local storage class, and we can call that set item. And for the key, what we want to, we need to have some keys, like here we call it as token, and we need to pass this value. So if I hardcode this key here, and later on if I want to retrieve this one, I need to type it again, and chances are there that I mistype or will have some typos. So what's a good practice to have another file? Let me have it, and here what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it as a storage and restore keys dot dart. Basically here we'll have all those constant keys here. So the first one right now is our token, so I'm going to call it as a token. That's it. And I am going to copy this token from here, and I am going to the auth repository dot dart. For the token key I am going to paste that key, but before that I need to bring that storage keys here. And for the value we can have this access token. So I'm going to paste it. We are good to go. And for the expires at, also we need to have another key. So let me have it like this one. I'll call it as token underscore expiration, and we need to change this value as well. So token, so expiration. I'm going to copy this one, and inside the auth repository for the key I am going to paste that token expiration, and also for the value we'll have this expires at. Once, and you know that this set item is a future, so we need to await here for it, and also for this one also awaiting. So we are here good to go, and we are going to successfully set these items on the local storage. And right now what we need is we need to return it, because currently we don't want anything. Later on we need to retrieve the user, and after successful storing this or setting these tokens, so right now what we need is we need to ensure, or we need to inform the user that the user is successfully logged in, and also we stored this token and token expiration. So how or where we can inform the user? If I go here inside the presentation, inside the auth, we have this sign in page, and if you remember we are calling this sign in or submit sign in from here. So this is the place that we, once we click on this sign in button, we are basically calling this method. So I am just going to cut this sign in, and I am going to remove that arrow function. So basically what we need is we need to have this sign in method. But if you see here, this sign in method is a type of dynamic, void dynamic. What I'm going to do is I am going to call this one as a future So basically this is a future, and let me put the type as void. And here what we want is we want to return it. So basically what we have here is this sign in method, and we are awaiting for a successful login. So once this login is successfully done, we are returning here. So once we return that, we are going to await here for it. So also, so we'll have it here, await, and once this is successfully completed, what we want is we want to call the navigator class dot push named to just navigate the user to the home route. So I'm going to call the home route. So this is how we can do it. Let me refresh the app, and what I'm going to do is I am going to grab this email and I'm going to paste it here, and I am going to type the password. And if I click on this sign in, you can see right now we are navigated to the because we have this error, and clearly it says here lib.router means we navigated to the home page, but we have this error, and the error clearly says that the type int is not a type of integer color. So basically means we are missing something, and this is our branding color. I think we have the only color here, and if I click on that, you can see this is a subtype of int, and this is not a color. So we did something wrong. We need to call this branding color, not branding primary color. So inside our home page, we need to just select all this branding color, and we need to change it to the branding color. So that was branding primary color, and right now we are good. But if I refresh the app, you can see still we are navigated to this login route. And how that is possible? Because inside our main route here we have our initial route as the login route. So now what we can do is we can have that local storage class. So local storage class dot get item, and for the item what we need is the token. So let me bring this token from the storage keys, and we are going to check it if the token is not null. So basically this get item will return or a null if the key is not presented inside the shared preferences. So if the key or the token is not null, means the user is successfully logged in. So what we want is we want to navigate to the home route. Otherwise means that the token is null, so we want to have the sign in route. So if I save it right now, and if I refresh the app, and you can see we are navigated to the home page of our application. And that's why, because we successfully stored this the sign-in credentials inside the what you can say the auth repository here, and also we are able to retrieve it anytime. So this is a good practice to have this local storage as a singleton here, and you can clearly see that what we are going to do is whenever we are calling this local storage, we are calling this singleton here. And also what we can do or we can have is anytime inside the application we want to store something or retrieve something, we can call that local storage instance set item or get item. So basically this is a single place that you can store the data or retrieve the data inside your application. So thank you for watching, and this was all about the login part. So we successfully logged in, and also we did the error handling part, and also we stored the token once we successfully logged in. So from the next tutorial, what we want to do is we want to start developing the rest of our application, and we will start with the opportunities, and we will move on with the forum favorites and so on. So thank you for watching. If this video was helpful, kindly subscribe and hit the bell button so you will be notified about the upcoming videos.